Lights, camera, action.
Well, hello, everybody.
Hello.
Welcome back to the podcast. I am Jon.
I am Emily.
And we are so glad to have you guys here. We hope you enjoyed last week's episode where we listened, or we didn't listen, you listened, we talked about Finding Nemo.
Yes.
Such a phenomenal movie. All-time classic. If you didn't listen to it, go listen to it. What are you doing with your life? Go listen to Finding Nemo. But we're glad you're here with us today. We are going to be talking about two movies, not just one. We're going to be comparing and contrasting
Karate Kid and Karate Kid. The 1984 version versus the 2010 version.
Yes. So we're going to be talking about, what's his name? Ralph Macchio and Jaden Smith.
Yes.
So should be a good one. And I think without further ado, let's dive in.
All right. Well, I framed my introductory details a little bit different, obviously, since we have two movies. So I'm going to go through both of them at the same time. So the 1984 version was released on June 22nd of 1984, and the 2010 version was released on June 11th, 2010. The 1984 version was directed by John G. Is it Alvidson? Is that how you say it?
Yeah,
Avildsen?
I have no idea.
And the 2010 version was directed by Harold Zwart.
Cool.
The 84 version is starring Ralph Macchio, Pat Morita, Elizabeth Shue, Martin Kove, William Zabka, and Randy Heller. And the 2010 version is starring Jaden Smith, Jackie Chan, Wen Han, Zhenwei Wang, I'm going to butcher this, Taraji Henson, and Yu Rong Guang.
Very good.
I truly don't know if any of those are correct, but anyways, moving on. 1984 version was distributed by Columbia Pictures. 2010 was distributed by Sony Pictures. The 84 version has a runtime of 2 hours and 6 minutes. 2010 was 2 hours and 20 minutes. They are both rated PG. And the budget of the old version was $8 million with a box office total of $91 million. And the new version had a box office total of, I couldn't get an exact number. It was somewhere between 40 and 45 million. And the box office total was...
Hold on. You said they had a box office total of 40 and 45
sorry.
million.
The budget.
Okay. I was going to say that's
45.
insanely low.
No. Budget was $40 to $45 million. Box office total was $359 million. Okay. Does that sound better?
Yes, it does.
Okay. So for fun facts, I broke them up. So I'll go through the 1984 version fun facts first.
Okay.
So I didn't have a ton for either, but I mean, once they're all together, it'll be probably the normal length. So first, in the early 80s, Pat Morita, who plays Mr. Miyagi, was best known for his work on the show Happy Days. I don't know if you ever watched that. I didn't, but I know about it because it was my mom's favorite show ever.
Yeah.
So he was a restaurant owner named Arnold on that show for people who are familiar. So Pat Morita was the director's first choice to play Mr. Miyagi, but the producer, Jerry Weintraub, felt that audiences wouldn't take him seriously because of his background in comedy. But after Pat Morita grew a beard and added a Japanese accent to his screen test, the producer changed his mind and he was given the part.
Really?
Yes.
Wow, that's very interesting. I didn't know that Japanese accent was not how he normally spoke.
I didn't either.
That's wild.
My next one is that originally Daniel LaRusso's last name was supposed to be Weber, so he was going to be Daniel Weber, and John Lawrence's name was supposed to be Donald Rice.
Donald Rice.
Very menacing, isn't it?
Well, it's just such a random name change.
know.
Why would we go from Donald Rice
To John
Johnny,
Lawrence.
yeah,
Or Johnny.
Johnny
Yeah.
Lawrence? Like
I don't know.
Johnny Lawrence is a much better name.
Oh, yeah.
Like, let's
by
be clear.
far. Can you imagine?
Donald Rice.
Donald Rice.
Come on. I mean, they could call him Donnie. Donnie works.
Yes,
And that's
yes.
not bad. But
Yeah.
why Rice? What? Good night. Oh, man, that's funny.
All right, next one. Do you know, since you're all into cars,
Okay.
do you know the kind of car that Daniel chooses to take as his birthday gift for Mr. Miyagi?
Oh, I couldn't even guess. Those are like old cars, and if they're not like muscle cars, I don't know old cars really that well. I could point out a Plymouth to you, but I know that that's not a Plymouth.
Yeah. Correct.
So
It's
yeah,
not.
I honestly don't know.
No, it's not anything like crazy or anything. I just thought it was like a fun little detail to add in. So
Yeah.
it is a 1948 Ford Super Deluxe Club convertible.
Yeah, I would have never guessed.
You don't know that car?
No.
Okay, my next one is that in the DVD commentary, Ralph Macchio.
Macchio.
I'm thinking of like macchiato.
Yeah.
Ralph Macchio said that the bruise that you can see every now and then on his chin is real. It was a result of a roundhouse kick that struck him during the Halloween night fight against
Ooh.
the kids that had the skeleton
The
costumes and Johnny.
Yeah.
So he actually got a roundhouse kick to the face, and
Dang. That stinks.
yeah. I don't know if that was the take that they kept. When he's getting beat up, if
I sure hope
that's
so.
a real kick,
That's
but-
that's kind of a rule on film productions. Is if somebody gets injured, like while you were shooting, you use that take.
Yeah.
Because they put their body on the line.
Yeah. And my last one for the 1984 version is that it was actually not intended to end with Daniel's victory over Johnny at the tournament. The opening scene in the sequel, The Karate Kid Part 2, which I have not seen. Have you seen it?
Oh yeah, I've
Okay.
seen the original trilogy.
Okay, I have not seen it. But in the opening scene, so you'll probably be familiar with this, it shows a parking lot confrontation between John Kreese and Mr. Miyagi.
Yes.
That was actually supposed to be the ending for
Oh,
the
really?
first Karate Kid. Yes.
Well, that scene is fantastic. That is.
I want to watch it now because
Yeah.
I think I've seen the original Karate Kid once before we watched it in preparation for this episode, but
Yeah.
it's been a long time. I don't even
Yeah.
know if I've seen it all the way through before this. So, and I loved it. So I would like to
yeah.
watch the second and third.
Yeah, it's super good. Honestly, I mean, we'll get into it later, but I think what makes it so strong, like the original Karate Kid, is knowing that there's more coming in sort of like a retrospect way, which is hard because like we can't really compare the two knowing that. But yes, they're very good.
Yeah. Okay. So my next fun facts are from the 2010 version. So, even though the movie actually has no karate in it, it's all
Right.
kung fu. The original series producer who I was talking about earlier, actually Jerry Weintraub, he insisted on keeping the title Karate Kid intact just to make as much money as he possibly could, which I totally
Yeah.
get.
I get it, but it's also kind of cheap. Like, let's be
Yeah,
honest.
yeah.
Because the only place that the 2010 movie is called The Karate Kid is in the U.S. Everywhere else, it's called The Kung Fu Kid or The Best Kid
Yes.
is what it was called in Thailand and some other stuff like that. And that for me is just like, okay, like I get it from the standpoint of like you basically did a reboot.
Right.
Because a lot of the plot of the movie is taken directly from the original Karate Kid, just changing scenery, maybe changing a few details here and there. But it's the Karate Kid, except instead of karate, it's kung fu. Instead of California, it's China.
Right.
So I get why you kind of keep that name because it is like a spiritual successor, so to speak, slash reboot type thing. But at the same time, like, just rename it. Like, I would almost be I would say I'd probably be more inclined and more in favor of the idea that, like, yes, let's just rename it.
Yeah.
Let it be its own thing.
Yeah. And he even briefly considered changing the title to The Kung Fu Kid, but obviously he decided otherwise. But
Jackie Chan said that everybody on set called it the Kung Fu Kid.
oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. Jaden Smith spent 3 months training in various martial arts techniques for this film. And according to Jaden's father, Will Smith.
Okay, keep his wife's name out your mouth.
Okay.
Hey,
Anyways,
if anybody watched that,
I'm sure
the
everybody
slap
did.
heard around the world, right?
All right, continuing on. According to Will Smith, Jackie Chan was so highly revered in China that just his presence in the country opened many doors for the production of this movie that, you know, nobody else possibly could have.
Yes.
So it led to several different like favors for the production, such as they were granted permission to film in areas strictly forbidden in the region. So Jackie Chan being in the film prompted the Chinese government to allow filming at the Great Wall of China,
Yes.
the Forbidden City, and the Wudang Mountains.
Yeah.
So pretty cool.
Yeah, it's super cool.
And I kind of got interested in the Forbidden City and everything. I just started researching it. And Karate Kid, the 2010 version, obviously, was the first film to shoot in the Forbidden City since 1987.
Wow.
So
that's insane.
a long time. For those of you who are curious, the 1987 movie that was shot there was The Last Emperor, which I have never seen, but I mean,
Yeah.
that's what it was.
Yeah.
And my last one is that even though Ralph Macchio agreed to reprise his role as Daniel LaRusso in Cobra Kai, which I recommend if you haven't seen that series.
It is good.
It is good. We haven't
show.
watched it all the way through, so I can't
We've still
speak
got
for.
season 5 and 6 left, but the first 4 seasons
We're good. Yeah.
Yeah, very good.
So obviously he agreed to be Daniel LaRusso again for that, but he actually turned down the chance to make a cameo in the Karate Kid remake. There wasn't like any specific reason that I could find, but apparently he was very publicly displeased with his experience making the Karate Kid Part 3 a couple decades before this movie came out.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing that's why he decided not to, but
Yeah.
also maybe it was a different reason because he did come back for Cobra Kai. So I don't know for sure, but either that or he just, moved on.
Yeah, I was going to
So,
say, he might have just moved on. I mean, time passed from then to when Cobra Kai came out. And
Right.
he got older, paycheck is a good thing to have. And
Mm-hmm.
so who knows? It could be any number of things.
yeah.
I mean, we're happy to see him back in Cobra Kai.
Yes.
So,
And very happy to see Johnny back in Cobra Kai too.
yes, honestly, Johnny's the star of
Yeah.
Cobra Kai.
It's true.
Let's be real.
It's true.
Yes.
All right. Well, that is all I have.
Okay. Well, as far as what I have is actually nothing. So in preparation for this episode, I was going to heavily condense kind of the production details, mostly because we're comparing and contrasting 2 movies. I didn't want to spend a whole lot of time talking about a lot of stuff. I'd rather talk about the films and differences or things like that. But it kind of worked out because the normal avenues that I pursue for finding out production details really had very, very, very minimal details. And the things that were included, I knew you were going to include on your fun facts. So I did not really have anything because there wasn't a whole lot of content for me to record. So with that, I think we can just go ahead and transition into scoring the films, as well as comparing them and so on and so forth. So first, I think let's go ahead and let's score the 1984 one.
Okay.
Let's not expound on it too much, and
Okay.
then let's compare, and then let's score the 2010 one, and then let's talk about the films.
Okay.
So, how would you score the 1984 Karate Kid?
I want you to go first.
Okay. I'm going to give it an 87.
Okay. I was thinking 85.
Okay.
We're talking 84 version, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
I was thinking 85.
Okay. And how would you score the 2010 version?
80.
Okay. I was going to give it an 83.
Okay.
So, 83 and 87 got a 4-point gap. You were 80 and
5
85.
and 80.
So,
Yeah.
5-point gap. So, we're pretty close.
Yeah.
Okay. So, why are you scoring the 84 Karate Kid higher than the 2010?
Well, honestly, I kind of was like expecting to like the 2010 version more because I just like, I remember seeing the 2010 version in theaters when it came out.
Okay.
And I like got it on DVD because I loved it, which I think it was partially because of the Justin Bieber.
Oh my gosh. In the credits?
Yeah.
Terrible. Yeah, you
I was
you
a
were
believer.
Believer. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Disgusting.
So anyways, so I guess it's kind of a nostalgic movie for me. Not like super nostalgic, but like I grew up watching this movie, and like since I had it on DVD, like, and I had a TV in my room, but it didn't have like cable or anything, so I
Right.
could only do DVDs. And so I just remember my sister and I would have something called sister sleepovers on the weekends.
Sister sleepover.
And we would just like, she would come into my room, we'd pull out my little trundle bed, and we'd watch this movie. Obviously this wasn't the only one we watched, but this was one that we watched often. We just really, really liked it a lot. And since I've seen that one like a million times, and I had only seen the 1984 version once, I was expecting, there's probably a reason I only watched it once. Like maybe it wasn't that great.
Right.
I couldn't really remember much, but now that I've watched them both back to back, like we watched one Monday, one Tuesday or something like that last week.
Yeah.
I definitely prefer the 84 version over that. And I don't completely know why. I think there's definitely some cheesy moments in the 2010 version.
Yes, for sure.
And I just don't like cheesy stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe it's just because it's the original that I like it better. I don't know for sure, but I definitely do like the original better.
Okay.
What about you? Why did you score it higher?
Well, there's a lot of reasons. So, I think there is, like, without a doubt, it's hard to talk about it without nostalgia playing a factor just because it is the original. Mm-hmm. There's also, like, I was thinking this as we were watching the 84 version. There's something about 80s films that are just so good. The way that they're shot, and I mean, everything about them, they're unique. It's just a snippet of that time frame. It feels like film was done differently in that decade. Mm-hmm. Like one of my all-time favorite movies, Terminator 2, came out in the 80s, and it very much reminds me, when I was thinking through it, I was like, yeah, the way like they shoot, the cinematography, there's just something about the cinematography in the 80s that was different. Mm-hmm. And I think too, there's probably something that was different about sound production, sound design, because there's a lot of quiet moments in the 84 Karate Kid, as well as a lot of other 80s movies like the original Top Gun, mm-hmm. Terminator 2, and things like that, where in today's movies, like, there aren't quiet moments. Mm-hmm. Not that often. They're out there. But even in some of the most, like, somber moments, so to speak, like, you don't get to sit, or even in, like, dull, like, regular moments that are just, like, there's not a whole lot going on. There's usually some sort of background track, this, that, or whatever.
Right.
And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, but because it's so prevalent, when I watch movies from the 80s, I'm like, man, this is nice. Like, there's just something special about the way those films were made that really stick out to me. So, it's kind of hard for the 2010 version to compete with that, just in terms of like, it came out in a completely different era.
Right.
Like, you know, that's comparing apples to oranges. They're two different things. But that is something that's factoring into why I like it better. Also, I think the characters are better. And
Yeah.
like, I really enjoyed Jackie Chan and Jaden Smith and the 2010 Karate Kid. But that's about it.
Yeah, I like his mom too.
Yeah, his mom was a good character, and I
don't-
like his little girlfriend. She was good too.
Yeah, I don't
But-
care for. I mean, obviously, you're not supposed to care for the bully, but like, I
Yeah.
don't know. Like, I just like Johnny better. As
And
the
like, even
antagonist.
being like the bully in the original Karate Kid, Johnny's a likable character.
Yeah,
And you're not supposed to like him, but he's a very much a likable character.
Yeah.
And I think that was something else that I was going to touch on. What is his instructor's name at Cobra Kai? Johnny's sensei.
John Kreese is the actor's name. Why can't I think of?
So John Kreese's character is fantastic.
Yeah.
And the reason that he's so good, or the reason that I think the Karate Kid is so much better, the original 1984 is better than the 2010 version, is because of John Kreese's character.
Yeah,
Because he's able to be a through and through true villain for the movie, whereas Johnny's just his student.
right.
You know, and so it's like Mr. Miyagi says, there's
No such thing as a bad
bad student,
student.
just a bad teacher.
Right.
Which Jackie Chan's Mr. Han, he echoes that. Actually, there's the majority of Jackie Chan's lines are actually just Mr. Miyagi's lines. But anyways, I think having John Kreese be able to just be a villain and they leaned into that worked really well, as opposed to the 2010 version. They had the same thing where like the bully to Jaden Smith's character, Dre, he took Kung Fu at where his sensei was basically doing the same thing that John Kreese said, you know, no mercy, this, that, and whatever. But that's kind of it. It's really just one scene. And there's nothing more than that. It's almost kind of a background detail.
Yeah.
And I think that really, really, it doesn't work in favor of the 2010 version.
Yeah, I would agree.
So that's another thing that factors in there. I think that the character development is a lot better. You have a lot of just strong characters. You have Johnny, who's a really likable antagonist, even though you're not supposed to like him. You have John Kreese, who is, or John Kreese's character, who's fantastic. Like, he's such a good villain that he works very well in the plot. You have Daniel LaRusso, who's kind of a turd sometimes, but you still love him and
Yeah.
you root for him because he's an underdog. He's very likable, but he is kind of stinker sometimes. And then you've got his little girlfriend. I can't remember her name. But
I can't remember either.
yeah, I can't remember her name, but she's really good. They're all interesting. And I feel like the thing that was strongest about the newer Karate Kid was really Jackie Chan and Dre, Mr. Han and Dre. Just their relationship was really, really strong.
Yes.
That came through in the movie really well, but maybe not as much the other parts.
Right. Yeah. And I also one thing that I do like more about the 2010 version than the 1984 version is like, because in the 1984 version they do touch on Mr. Miyagi's wife passing and, you know, like
Yeah.
that whole thing. But I really like that they dive into it in the 2010 version with Mr. Han's wife and son. And that scene makes me cry every time when he's like just like trashing his car and Dre comes in and he's explaining everything. And I think that really is a big climactic point for their relationship, just in general. But I do really like that they kind of dive into that, because it just helps us feel more in touch with the character and the relationship there. And yeah, I agree that I think they have a very strong relationship in the 2010 version. In the 84 version, though, I do really like the relationship, and I don't know if it's because like Daniel's older than Dre is, if that's why I like it better. But I especially love when it's his birthday and
Yeah.
Mr. Miyagi gives him his choice of car. Like that's a really cool scene too.
Yeah, that's maybe one of the best scenes, or maybe not one of the best, but one of my favorite scenes that I can think back on in the 84 version. I love that. And that's what I was about to touch on. For as strong as the relationship is between Mr. Han and Dre, I feel like the relationship between Mr. Miyagi and Daniel LaRusso is so much stronger.
Yeah.
Like, and that's not to say that the Mr. Han and Dre relationship isn't strong. I think that's probably the best thing about that movie is their relationship. But the Mr. Miyagi Daniel-san relationship is just fantastic.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
the very much like father-son relationship, it comes through so strong. I think one of my favorite scenes, it's such a small scene in the original Karate Kid, is when they're just first starting training. And Mr. Miyagi tells him, he's like, Daniel-san, if you go to the left side of the street, you're safe. You're fine. If you go to the right side of the street, you're safe. If you stand in the middle of the road, you're going to get squished like a grape. It's the same thing with karate. You can go to the left or the right, but you can't be half in, half out. You got to be all in. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to succeed. That's like such a small moment, but such a special moment because he's speaking truth into his life. And I think there's a lot of other scenes like that in the 84 version that just stick out to me as far as like him being such a strong father figure.
Yeah. And I think it's just very heartfelt, this part where, because Dre says it to Mr. Han too, but I think it feels so much more meaningful when Daniel says it to Mr. Miyagi, when he says that he's the best friend he's ever had.
Yeah.
Like, I think I just love that because yes, Dre says it to Mr. Han, but it's not as, I don't know.
It doesn't hit the same.
It doesn't hit the same.
And I think that's probably because we see more of Daniel's struggle.
Right.
It feels like the whole movie is an uphill battle for him. And that's not to say that Dre's character arc is not an uphill battle. But I almost feel like whether it's the pacing or the writing, whatever, the way that the story is told in the 2010 version, it just feels like it's kind of quick and that you just accept like, oh yeah, like he's had it kind of tough.
Right.
Whereas in the 84 version, you're forced to sit in a lot of that.
Yeah.
And like you see him, Daniel-san, just absolutely crushed. I think in maybe one of the scenes where you feel that the most is when he's just throwing his bike in the dumpster and just screaming.
Right.
Just screaming. That feels very real and authentic.
Yeah.
And that's probably why, as audience members, we're more inclined to be like, man, that was really heartfelt.
Yeah.
That was really special for him to say, Mr. Miyagi, you're the best friend I ever had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, what was I going to say? I don't know. Keep talking. It'll come to me.
Okay.
Maybe you could start diving into some of your favorite scenes.
Well, I actually was going to keep going.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
So one of the other things that I think really, I guess, puts the 84 version in favor for me of the 2010 version is just Mr. Miyagi.
Yeah.
Like, and that's not to say that Jackie Chan's Mr. Han is bad, because he's not. He's probably my favorite part about the whole movie.
Yeah.
Like, he is by far the best part of that movie. However, there's just something special about Mr. Miyagi. He feels like everybody's grandpa.
He reminds me of Uncle Iroh from
Yes.
Avatar.
Oh my gosh. I wish that like we lived in an era where Pat Morita would have been that age in today's age, because he could play Uncle Iroh perfectly from Avatar The Last Airbender. For those of you who don't know, we are very big The Last Airbender fans. So the original animated series, all the other live action, the movies, all that stuff, we've not seen it. We don't care. The original animated series is fantastic.
Correct.
But anyways.
I remember what I was going to say, unless you're going to keep going.
It was basically that, just that I think Mr. Miyagi is such a special character. He's such a good character. That's what really makes the movie as a whole. Even like in the small moments, like he's slick. Like when they were going in for the karate tournament and they needed a belt for Daniel's son.
Yeah.
He like, if you weren't paying attention as an audience member, you could literally miss this scene.
I did.
I had to rewind it for you to show you.
Like I saw him waving over the girl and like, and then her leaving with something, but like I didn't.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's so smooth and slick that literally a scene intended for the audience, you could miss it. And that's how good it is. But he needs a belt for Daniel because
he tells the guy that he's a black belt.
Yes, he tells the sign-in guy, whatever, the front desk worker for the tournament, that he's a black belt. Well, he leans over and he tells the guy, it's Miyagi, not Miyagi. And while he's doing that, he's like discreetly stealing a belt out of this guy's bag and handing it to the girl. Like just something like that, like super slick. It feel like I buy it. Like it's funny, it's clever, it's a great plot point, it's memorable. And so that's therein again just why that movie is so good.
Yeah.
The one thing I will say, one of the best scenes with Mr. Han, and Mr. Han is fantastic. I love him. I really, really like that the way he trains Dre is also a
like
an attitude check, more or less, because he saw him like throwing his jacket on the floor to his mom, disrespecting her, being unkind, being disobedient. And so for weeks, all day, he made him pick up his jacket, put it on, and take it off and hang it up.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to touch on, because I like, as much as I love the 84 version, I think I like the way that Mr. Han trains Dre better than Mr. Miyagi, just because like it gives the audience even more of a feel of like, okay, this is so like redundant. Like he's just putting on a jacket and taking it off and hanging it up over and over and over again. Whereas Daniel, washed and waxed the car, he painted the fence, he sanded the floor. Like he did several different things. So I thought it was cool that it was just one thing, and that you could still like, because now that I know what the ending is, like I know what to look for. And so when he's like doing the moves, like you can see like, oh, that was his taking off the jacket, or that was his hanging up the jacket. Right. And that is probably that might be my favorite, one of my favorite scenes in the movie, is when Mr. Han, like, cause Dre is just done. He's mad. And then Mr. Han tells him to take off or put on his jacket or something. Right. And then he takes it from Dre and says, put on the jacket. And I love that. And same thing with Mr. Miyagi when he's doing the same with Daniel. Like, I love that scene when it clicks for him, and then they like beat up their teacher. Yes. Not actually, but use all their moves and So
the thing that I think, that's one instance where the 2010 movie maybe did a better job than the original, not to say that the original is bad. They're both very good. And I think that there's a lot of value and I guess credence to the idea that like doing menial tasks is a really good way to train people up to like have a good attitude. Doing the same thing over and over again because like we're naturally very selfish people. So it's easy to kind of have a mindset of like, okay, I'm above this. Come on. Like I need to do something different. Let's go. So as like a teacher, having them do that over and over again, I think is really good in either scenario to basically humble them and break them of their pride to get them to the point where they're ready and they're teachable and they've already built up the muscle memory. So you're working like in two ways at the same time.
Right.
The difference is that the 2010 version found a way to build on that and make it even better because they incorporated a way to teach Dre the Kung Fu while also teaching him a very tangible, applicable lesson about, hey, don't disrespect your mom. Hang your jacket up. You will be obedient to her. You will honor her. So I thought that was really, really cool. They found a way to take something from the original and really improve upon it.
Yeah, I agree. I also like how, because in the original that Mr. Miyagi has his chopsticks that he's trying to get a fly with.
Yes.
I like that they did like a little tie-in with the new one, where Mr. Han is doing the same when Dre first meets him, and then he like pulls out a fly swatter. I thought that was funny.
Yeah.
Too.
Yes. Okay. I think we have both kind of done this already, but there are a few things that come to my mind. So let's talk about some scenes that are like your favorite scenes in either movie or things that you disliked in one movie that they did differently in another or something like that. So favorites or dislikes?
Yeah, I think I've said most of my favorite ones already, just as far as like I liked in the 2010 version the Mr. Han backstory being told, and I love in both versions when it finally clicks for them, like that they know these moves from the tasks that they've been doing.
Right.
Oh man. Why don't you go while I'm thinking?
So one of the things that I don't know, it's tough. One of the things that I would say I dislike in the new version, the 2010 version, the bully's just lame. Like, and like I think that's just like the way the story was written. He just feels like a background character. He doesn't feel like somebody who's like super present, even though like he is. I don't know. Maybe it's something that the original did so well.
Yeah.
That it's kind of hard
Right.
to live up to. But the newer one, he just feels like he's there because there was a bully in the original, and you have to have a way for the main character to get from point A to point B.
Right.
He doesn't feel like he's driving the story as much as he is just like, okay, this has to happen to get Dre where he needs to be. And like, he doesn't have a lot of character development, it doesn't feel like.
Yeah. I will say one thing that I liked about the 1984 version, better than the 2010 version, which is kind of tying back to what we were talking about before, about just how it seemed like Daniel had a real uphill battle for the good majority of the movie.
Yeah.
One thing that I think even more so put us on Daniel's side was that, yes, he found like a friend at the beginning that like, helped him with his bag or his bike or whatever.
Yes.
But then when they're at the beach playing soccer, is that what they're playing?
Yes.
Like all of his buddies that he just made like completely turn on him. Like, like they're talking to the guy that he first met and was like, well, where'd you find this guy at? Like that kind of thing. And then he's just left there on the beach, like bleeding and in his face in the sand. Like it's like from the very beginning, like he's got a rough go of it. Not to say that Dre doesn't, but like that didn't happen, you know? Like, yes, he got beat up on the playground, but like his friends didn't just immediately go, what a loser, you know, and leave.
Right.
They did leave him alone, but it's because he told them that he wanted to be left alone.
Yeah. And Daniel said that too. He said, leave me alone, but it felt different. Like they were kind of not making fun of him, but close.
But kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But one thing I did like about the 2010 version too was that they also, I really like when they go into the mountains.
Yes,
and they see. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I think that's maybe one of the better scenes in the new one. Mostly because I think that's maybe one of the best scenes that builds on the idea of their relationship.
Yeah.
You know, Mr. Han keeps pushing Dre to get up the mountain. They're going to get there, and that they finally get there, and it's one of those quiet moments where like it feels like Dre's character is really learning and that he's taking things in, he's drinking it deep. And then where they're standing there at the dragon well, and he's like, Mr. Han says this is where his father brought him.
Right.
And then, you know, so it's kind of a special moment there between him and Dre.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
anyways, continue. I didn't really mean to.
That was about all I was going to say.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, you're fine.
Interject. One of the other things that I really dislike, man, the 2010 version, I think they were trying really hard, at least for the first part of the movie. Specifically, like the first two fights where Dre gets beat up really bad by the bullies. I just did not at all enjoy the fight choreography or the way that was shot, because it felt like it was trying really hard to sell you on the action and the impact and all this stuff. And films from 2000 to 2010, not all films, but a lot of action films suffer from the Jason Bourne effect, and the Bourne Legacy, or that's the newer one, the Bourne Ultimatum, Identity, all that stuff, Supremacy. Those are good movies, but they completely changed the demographic in terms of action movies for a while, and I can't stand it because what they did that set them apart, those movies, was making the action really, really like fast paced and high energy, which meant a lot of cuts. Like they were cutting. And it was a new thing. People had never seen that before. It was a big deal. And people were like, wow, this is intense. It feels like you're in the fight. Like there's a lot of shaky cam. There's a lot of cuts. It feels like you're in the action too. And so I get that. Like there is absolutely a place for shaky cam in cinema. However, living in like a post Bourne film area, era, where all of the action movies today have kind of moved on from that, and the fight choreography is incredibly comprehensive, but it's also, the majority of fights nowadays are almost zero cuts. You can see everything very clearly. Watch the John Wick movies. Watch the Batman. We're going to be covering it this season very soon. Watch the majority of action films that have come out in the last 5 years, and you're not going to see a lot of cuts. You're going to see a lot of very intentional fight choreography that you can see very plainly. And so watching that for me was just like, man, I can't stand this, especially in the 84 version where you could see the fights very clearly.
Right.
So I don't know. That was just one of those things that for me, when I watched it, I was like, man, I hate this. Like, this is not fun. And it didn't stay that way for the whole movie, but it was those initial ones where I feel like they were really trying to sell the movie to people.
For sure.
So
Yeah, I could see that.
anyways,
All right. Well, anything else you want to cover?
no, I think that's all I have.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for listening. This has been fun getting to break down both of these movies and pin them against each other.
Yes. One thing that I forgot that I was going to mention.
Okay.
Sorry, I totally spaced this. Is just that I wanted to say that one of the things that I think works the best for the 2010 movie is Jackie Chan.
Yes.
And I know
for sure.
I kind of already touched on the idea that Mr. Han is a really strong character and everything, but I have such an immense respect for Jackie Chan, mostly because there is a YouTube channel that I watch that breaks down stunts in movies, and they talk a lot about Jackie Chan and Bruce Lee and a handful of other guys who they did a lot of the stunts like for real.
Mm-hmm.
They sent it and they did it in every take. And so Jackie Chan's early film work is insane.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of his movies from the 70s and 80s are phenomenal. If you want to just see like raw, hardcore stunts where he's just doing it.
Yeah.
So I have an immense amount of respect for him and the work that he's done. And so having him in the movie is what really sold that movie.
Oh,
I think
yeah, no
if
doubt.
Jackie Chan wasn't in it, it really wouldn't work. Mm-hmm. And also just really quickly, this building on the idea of the jacket, take it on, take it off.
Yeah.
What made that scene even stronger was that he made him do it in the rain and he stood out there and held an
Yes.
umbrella over him.
Mm-hmm.
That was powerful.
Yep.
That was super good.
I agree.
Okay. Sorry. That was like a very last minute thought.
That's okay. I'm glad you said it because I think it's a good point.
Okay. Go ahead.
All right. Well, that wraps up this week's episode, unless there's any other final thoughts that you'd like
No.
to add.
I'm good.
So next week, we are going to be covering The Batman, as John previously had mentioned.
The Batman.
And we do have a guest, but we will save that for next week.
Yes, it's going to be fantastic. I am so excited about this. It's going to be our Halloween episode.
It's one of John's favorite movies.
This is maybe top 5 movies for me of all time.
It is very good.
It's fantastic. I won't go into any more because I'm going to start nerding out about it. But I love this movie. So if you're a superhero fan, if you're a Batman fan, or you just like thrillers, come check this out. It's going to be good. We're going to have a guest on the podcast. We're really excited about it. It's going to be a lot of fun. They're new to the podcast, so that's always exciting.
Yes.
Somebody that's never been on before, so that's going to be a lot of fun. So if you want to watch the movie ahead of time, go stream it on HBO Max. It is currently streaming there, included with the subscription. If you don't have Max, you can rent it on Amazon Prime. You can rent it on YouTube. You can rent it on Google Play. But watch it. And I will forewarn you, if you have not seen The Batman, but you're wanting to kind of watch it in preparation for the podcast, but you've seen other Batman movies, be warned. The Batman is not your typical superhero movie. It's not your typical Batman movie. It is better than your typical Batman movie because it is extremely faithful and true to Batman comics in the sense that it is a detective movie. It is a slow burn. It is not a super action-packed movie, even though there is a lot of action. A lot of people have been conditioned to believe that Batman movies are high-paced, high action, and that's just not what the comics are. So, manage your expectations, go watch the movie, get blown away by it, and then come back here and listen to our podcast where we talk about it.
Yes, I second that.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you guys for listening. We will see you guys next time. If you liked what you heard, give us a thumbs up on YouTube or give us a rating on Spotify. We do really appreciate it, and we hope you guys have a great week.
See you later.
Bye.